He dropped me off at a nursing home on Christmas morning. No hug, no goodbye. Just said, "It's only for the holidays, Dad." Like that made it okay. I'd raised him with everything I had, paid for his college, gave him our family home, built a future for his daughter, my granddaughter, with a college fund started by her late grandmother. And now they were finished with me, tossed aside like old furniture. That was the moment I decided she wouldn't be getting that fund. Not anymore. Not after what they did. I was done being silent. Before all of this, before the nursing home and the silence, my life was filled with purpose. I wasn't a rich man, but I was proud. I built homes with my hands for over 40 years, taught apprentices how to square a beam and seal a roof so tight not even December wind could whistle through. I came home with sawdust in my hair and sore knees, but I never complained. I had a family to come home to. That made everything worth it. My son, Matthew, was my pride, born in a blizzard, with lungs like a trumpet and fists already clenched like he had something to prove. Marjorie held him against her chest and whispered, "This one's going to shake the world." She wasn't wrong, just not in the way we'd hoped. When Matt was little, he followed me everywhere. I'd be repairing a fence, and there he was with his little plastic hammer, helping by banging on the grass. We used to build birdhouses in the garage, just the two of us. He was always asking questions. "Why does wood splinter, Dad? Why do nails rust? How do you know when something is strong enough to stand?" I always told him the same thing. Because you built it with care. That's what makes it strong. We didn't have much money, but Christmas was always magical. Marjorie made it so. She'd start baking a week before, the house smelling like cinnamon and brown sugar. We had a cheap fake tree from the drugstore, but she decorated it with ribbons she'd curled by hand and little ornaments we made ourselves. Matt always got one good gift, something he'd been hoping for, and every year, without fail, he'd open it and say, "Thank you, Dad. Thank you, Mom." That meant the world. When Matt got into college, first in our family to do so, I sold my fishing boat to help cover tuition. Never told him. Just said it was time to simplify. Marjorie cried the day he left for campus, not because she was sad, but because she was proud. "He's going to build something bigger than we ever could," she whispered. Years passed. He became an engineer, got a good job, met a woman named Claire. They were married in our backyard, under the oak tree I planted the year Matt was born. Marjorie danced that night like she was 20 again, her laughter echoing through the grass. She held my hand and said, "We did it. We gave him everything." When our granddaughter, Lily, was born, I felt like the world had folded into something complete. She had Marjorie's eyes and her quiet way of studying everything before speaking. I used to bounce her on my knee and tell her stories about the tools in my shed. She'd giggle when I gave the hammer a name. Henry, the hefty hitter. She loved that. Marjorie, already sick by then, started saving money quietly in an envelope labeled, "For Lily." I told her we had time, but she shook her head. She'll need it, and I want her to have options, choices we didn't. After Marjorie passed, I turned that envelope into a savings account, small but growing, and named it Lily's College Fund. It was my way of keeping her promise alive. I moved in with Matt and Claire a few years later, when the stairs in my old house became too much. They said it would be easier this way. I was hesitant but grateful. Claire was polite at first. Lily was still young then, maybe 10. She'd sit beside me on the porch and ask about the birdhouses, or beg me to tell her stories about when her dad was little. She loved hearing how he once glued his hand to the dining table. Matt would blush and laugh, pretending it didn't happen. But it did. I still have the photo of him with his hand wrapped in gauze, scowling like a wet cat. For a time, it felt like the good years hadn't ended, just shifted. I helped around the house, fixed leaky faucets, replaced light bulbs before they burned out. I made Sunday pancakes, the way Marjorie used to, and left little notes for Lily in her lunchbox. Be brave today. Grandpa's proud of you. She'd draw me pictures in return. Stick figures of us fishing, baking, smiling. They're still folded in my wallet, worn at the creases. But time has a strange way of thinning love. It's like insulation. Strong at first, but wear it down just enough, and suddenly you feel the draft. Claire started sighing more when I left a dish in the sink. Matt began working longer hours. Lily grew quiet, buried in homework and headphones. The house was full, yet I'd never felt more alone. Still, I stayed grateful. I reminded myself, they gave me a room. They gave me food. I shouldn't ask for more. But deep down, I missed the warmth that used to hang in the air like Marjorie's perfume. I missed laughter over dinner, movie nights with popcorn, the way Matt used to say, "Hey, Dad, help me with this real quick." He didn't say that anymore. I thought maybe it was just growing pains. Everyone was busy, tired, distracted. I figured if I just stayed out of the way, things would settle. That's what we're taught as fathers, isn't it? Keep your head down, work hard, don't complain. Be the steady one, the quiet foundation. But the cracks had already begun. And I didn't know it yet, but everything I had built, every nail I hammered into the frame of this family, was about to be ripped out, board by board. It didn't happen all at once. That's the cruelest part, how betrayal creeps in slow like rust beneath paint. You don't see it at first. You just notice the handle feels a little looser in your grip. Then one day the whole door falls off. I think the first time I really felt the shift was when Claire asked me not to sit in the living room during her quiet hours. I used to watch the news every morning with my coffee. Nothing loud, just a low murmur, the familiar drone of anchors and the clink of my spoon against the mug. One day, she stood in the hallway, arms crossed. "Dad, could you maybe do that in your room from now on? I need the space to think." I remember blinking at her. My room! It was a converted office, barely wide enough to stretch my arms. I had a twin bed and a nightstand stacked with my old photo albums. But I nodded. Of course, I didn't mean to be in the way. After that, the list grew. Small things, subtle. Don't leave dishes in the sink, even if I rinsed them. Don't touch the thermostat. It was programmed now. Don't let Lily eat too much sugar. She's not a child anymore, Dad. One afternoon, I offered to help with yard work. I'd seen the front shrubs getting wild, figured I could trim them like I used to. Claire caught me halfway through and scolded me like a child. "Please don't do things without asking. We've got a gardener coming next week. You just complicate things." I wanted to say, "It's a bush, Claire. I used to build houses." But instead I apologized, again. Even Matt, who used to call me every week when he first moved out, had grown distant. He'd come home from work glued to his phone. When I tried to share a story or ask about his job, I got nods, half smiles, or vague mm-hms. I could have told him the roof was leaking fire, and he probably would have said, "Cool, sounds good." I started to feel invisible. There was one day I'll never forget. I was in the kitchen making tea, and I overheard them talking in the next room. Claire whispered, "Your dad's here all the time. It's like having another kid." Matt sighed and said, "I know, but what are we supposed to do? He can't live alone." Another kid. Like I was a stray they'd fed once and now couldn't shake. That night I stared at the ceiling for hours. The tea had gone cold in my hand. I thought of Marjorie, how she used to rest her palm on my chest whenever I was quiet too long. "You're doing that thinking thing again," she'd say. Then she'd kiss my forehead and remind me I was needed. No one reminded me anymore. Even Lily had changed. She was a teenager now. I tried to understand. She had tests, friends, phones. But I missed her. Missed how she used to sit on my lap and ask me what clouds were made of. Now she barely looked up from her screen. When I asked about school, I got shrugs. When I reminded her about the college fund, Grandma's promise, I called it, she said, "Yeah, okay, cool," like I was a bank instead of a person. I don't blame her entirely. Kids reflect what they see. What cut deepest, though, was when I got sick with the flu and no one noticed for 3 days. I stayed in bed, aching, shivering, coughing. I only had tissues and old cough drops in the drawer. On day 3, Lily walked in, took one look at me and said, "You look like a zombie, Grandpa," then left. Matt eventually brought me some soup from a takeout bag. He didn't sit, just left it on the nightstand and said, "Hope you feel better, Dad." I stared at the closed door for an hour. After I recovered, I tried to get back into routine. Thought maybe I was being too sensitive. Maybe they were just stressed. So I suggested we have a family movie night. I even baked Marjorie's chocolate chip cookies. Burned the first batch, but the second came out okay. I set them on a plate, brought them into the living room and said, "How about a movie? Something funny, like old times." Claire didn't even look up. "We're watching something already." I saw the screen. It was a reality show. Loud, empty, nothing I recognized. Matt didn't speak. Lily just stared at her phone. I stood there, holding the plate like a fool. "Okay," I said. "Maybe another night." No one responded. That night I sat outside on the back porch alone. It was cold, but I didn't care. I wrapped myself in a blanket and looked up at the sky. Somewhere in that vast dark, I imagined Marjorie shaking her head. Not in anger, just sadness. The kind that weighs down your ribs and makes breathing feel like a chore. I still hadn't touched the college fund. I checked it every month, updated the ledger, watched it grow. It was the one thing I could still control. A promise I hadn't yet broken. I imagined Lily walking across a graduation stage, clutching her degree. I imagined her standing tall, looking up at the sky, whispering, "Thank you, Grandma." But even that dream was starting to feel hollow. What good is a gift if it's given to someone who looks right through you? The day it broke for me wasn't a blowout. It wasn't a scream or a slap or even a slammed door. No, it was quieter than that. Quieter and crueler. It was Lily's school fundraiser, a Saturday morning brunch at the community center. Claire had asked me to stay home earlier in the week, claiming it would just be crowded and loud, and that Grandpa probably wouldn't enjoy it anyway. I almost agreed. I almost let it go. But something in my chest wouldn't let me. So I put on my best sweater. The gray one Marjorie had knitted me still smelled faintly of cedar. And I walked down. Just 5 blocks. I'd done it before. I figured I'd surprise them. When I stepped into the hall, I could hear music playing, laughter, someone calling out raffle numbers over a microphone. I saw a table decorated in Lily's school colors, kids handing out homemade bookmarks, baked goods, crafts. The place was alive. And then I spotted them. Claire was at a table near the front, laughing with another couple. Matt stood beside her, sipping coffee. Lily, my Lily, was behind the booth selling cookies. The very same booth Marjorie and I had run together years ago when Matt was her age. They looked comfortable, complete, like I was never meant to be there. I stood frozen for a moment, unsure what to do. Then Lily saw me. Her smile faded. Not in horror, not even in surprise, just discomfort, like I was a stranger who'd wandered in from the street. Claire turned. Her face dropped. She didn't come over. Instead, she leaned into Matt and whispered something. He looked my way and then he sighed. Sighed. Not a greeting, not a wave. Just a long, tired sigh. Finally, he walked over. Not quickly, not warmly, just functionally. "Dad," he said quietly, voice tight. "We talked about this." "No," I replied. You and Claire talked. I never agreed. He looked over his shoulder, then back at me. This isn't the time. Lily's got enough going on. I glanced past him to my granddaughter. She didn't meet my eyes. She turned her back and began stacking brownies. I swallowed hard. I just wanted to support her, that's all. Matt rubbed his temple. I know, but it's just, she's a teenager now. She gets embarrassed easily. Embarrassed. That word hit harder than a fist. I nodded slowly. Right, of course. Wouldn't want Grandpa to embarrass anyone. Dad? No, I get it. I turned and walked out. Nobody followed me. No one asked if I was okay. No one even looked back. I made it home before the tears came. Not loud sobs. I haven't cried like that since Marjorie passed. No, these were slow, soundless tears. The kind that don't need air, just gravity and grief. I sat in my little room, stared at the walls. Photos of Marjorie, of young Matt, of Lily as a toddler on my lap, all of them smiling, frozen in time. I couldn't square those images with the people I saw that morning. A few hours later, Matt knocked on my door. He didn't come in. Just wanted to say, I'm sorry if that was awkward today. Was it awkward? I said, not turning around. Or was it inconvenient? Silence. Then he cleared his throat. Claire just thinks you've been having a harder time adjusting lately. To what? Another pause. To not being the center of everything anymore. That was it. That was the moment something cracked. Not a small fissure, a full break. Like an old beam finally snapping under the weight of years. I stood up and faced him. For the first time in a long time, I looked at my son not as my boy, but as a man who had let me become invisible. Is that what you think, Matt? That I want attention? His jaw tightened. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. He looked like he wanted to say more, maybe explain, maybe soften the blow, but instead he just nodded and said, "Dinner's in the fridge if you want it." Then he walked away. I didn't touch the food. That night, I stayed up flipping through old letters. Ones Marjorie had written me before Lily was born. She always knew how to see the soul of a person. One letter stood out. In it, she wrote, "One day, Lily will grow up, and when she does, make sure she remembers who you are, not what others tell her." I held that letter to my chest and closed my eyes. But the betrayal wasn't done. A few days later, I discovered that my name had been removed from the utility accounts for the house. No explanation. I only found out when I tried to pay the water bill, and the system rejected me. When I asked Matt, he said, Claire thought it would just be simpler this way. Less confusion. Less confusion. I wasn't even confused. Just erased. And the worst part? No one, not even Lily, ever asked me how I felt. No one sat me down and said, "Is this okay, Grandpa?" Or, "Do you feel safe here?" They just acted like I'd drifted into the walls. Something static, faded, replaceable. That was when I stopped trying to talk, stopped offering to help, stopped baking, stopped hoping. I sat quietly, observed, took note of what people did when they thought I didn't matter anymore. And in that silence, I began to understand something terrifying. They weren't just being cold. They were planning something. It was Christmas Eve when I heard them. The tree was lit in the living room, blinking softly, the same artificial one I'd helped unpack for the last 5 years. But this time, no one asked for my help. No one asked me to hang a single ornament. Instead, I watched from my little chair in the hallway, just beyond their line of sight, as Matt and Claire stood in the kitchen whispering. Claire's voice was hushed, but sharp. "Look, it's already approved. They have a private room available starting the 26th. Matt sighed. "Christmas, Claire?" "Really?" Claire scoffed. "He won't even notice. Half the time he doesn't even know what day it is. You said yourself he's barely getting around." I gripped the armrests of my chair so tight my knuckles went white. "Lily's got college visits coming up," she continued. "We need space. We need focus. We can't keep tiptoeing around your father's moods. It's exhausting." "And what do we tell him?" Matt asked softer. Claire replied coldly, "Tell him it's temporary, that it's just for the holidays. He'll believe it." Matt didn't argue, didn't protest, didn't defend me. He just said, "All right, let's just get through tomorrow." I waited until they left the kitchen before I stood up, walked slowly to my room and closed the door without a sound. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, Marjorie's letter still tucked under my pillow. My heart thumped heavy in my chest, not just from anger, but from shame. Shame that I'd let it get this far, that I hadn't seen it coming sooner. I thought of Lily, how she used to crawl into bed beside me and ask me to read to her. Now, she barely looked up when I entered a room. I thought of the college fund, still intact, still growing. Every cent I'd scraped together for her, every little sacrifice, and now I was just a box to be checked off their to-do list. Relocate Dad, clean house. The betrayal felt complete, but in the cold of that night, something else stirred in me, a new kind of resolve. I realized I had one thing left they hadn't touched, hadn't controlled, that fund, that promise, Marjorie's promise. It had been meant for Lily, for our legacy. But that money was more than a college fund. It was the last tangible piece of who we were, of what we stood for. And if they were going to treat me like an obligation, like furniture to be rearranged, then I wasn't about to leave our legacy in their hands. Christmas morning came quietly. No carols, no laughter. I was served a plate of scrambled eggs while Claire and Matt bustled around packing the car for a holiday drive. Lily didn't come down until late. She didn't say much, just mumbled "Merry Christmas" and went back upstairs. Then, around noon, Matt knocked on my door. "Hey, Dad," he said, all casual-like he wasn't about to upend my life. "We're going to take you somewhere nice, just for a few days. You know? Give you some rest. Let Lily have the house to herself for the holidays." I stared at him. "Is that what you think I need? Rest?" He smiled awkwardly. "Yeah, you've been tired." I didn't answer. I just stood up and walked past him, grabbed my coat and got in the car. I didn't want to give them the satisfaction of resistance. Let them think I was old. Let them think I was broken. Let them think. The nursing home was 10 minutes away. It looked like a motel for ghosts. Quiet halls, fake flowers, a TV in the lobby playing static-filled reruns. Matt filled out a few forms. Claire didn't come in. Then he wheeled me inside and said, "Just for the holidays, Dad." He didn't look me in the eye. He never does when he lies. Then he was gone. I sat alone in that room, the walls painted an awful yellow, listening to the buzz of the overhead lights. There was a small plastic Christmas tree on the side table, probably reused every year. I stared at it for a long time. Later, a nurse named Maria came in to check on me. She had warm eyes and soft hands, called me Mr. Walker, even when I told her she could just say, "John." "You settling in okay?" she asked gently. I looked at her, really looked, and for the first time in weeks I felt seen. "No," I said, "but I will be." She nodded, like she understood. That night, while the halls fell into silence and the snow gathered on the windowsills, I made my decision. The next morning I asked Maria for help with a phone call, not to my son, not to Lily, to my lawyer, Mr. Howard Graves, an old friend of mine. We hadn't spoken in some time, but he answered on the first ring. Said he was surprised to hear from me, but not unwelcome. When I told him what I needed, he didn't hesitate. "Are you sure about this, John?" he asked. "I'm sure," I said. "I've got a promise to keep, but not to them." Maria stood quietly in the room while I spoke, not asking questions. When I hung up, she smiled and said, "Whatever it is, you seem lighter already." I nodded, because I was. Because for the first time in months, I wasn't just enduring, I was planning. And this time, it would be my plan, not something done behind my back. Have you ever felt betrayed by your own family? Let us know in the comments. The funny thing about dignity is you don't realize how much of it you've given away until you see someone treat you with basic kindness. Maria did that for me. Every morning she came in with a warm smile and a calm voice. She'd ask how I slept, and she actually listened. When she brought me breakfast, she didn't just drop the tray and disappear. She stayed a minute, asked me about the photos on my nightstand. I told her about Marjorie, about Matt when he was little, about Lily and the birdhouses. Maria said, "You've got a lot of love in you, Mr. Walker. I can feel it." I nearly choked on my toast. Not because she said it, but because I hadn't heard words like that in so long. In my own home, I'd become a shadow. Here, I was a person again. After the phone call to Howard Graves, I started paying more attention, not just to my thoughts, but to the patterns. Who called? Who didn't? The answers were simple. No one called. Not a word from Matt. Not even a courtesy check-in. Claire didn't send a text. Lily, nothing. They'd drop me off like a coat at the cleaners. Pick up after New Year. Only I wasn't waiting around to be picked up. A few days after Christmas, Maria found me in the hallway, staring out the window. "You all right, Mr. Walker?" I nodded. "Just thinking. You ever see someone fall so slowly they don't even feel it until they're on the floor?" She tilted her head. "Like, emotionally?" "Exactly." I turned to her. "I gave my whole life to my son. Not for a thank you, not for recognition, just because that's what you do when you love someone. You give. But lately, I've been wondering, when did that stop being enough? When did I become a burden?" Maria didn't answer right away. Then she said, "Sometimes people only remember the roof over their head, not who laid the first brick." That line sat heavy in my chest all day. Later that afternoon, I called Matt, straight to voicemail. I waited an hour and called again. He answered this time, sounded rushed. "Hey, Dad, everything okay?" "You tell me." Silence. "You haven't checked in once," I said. "You just dropped me here and vanished." "It's been a crazy week," he replied. "Work's been nuts. Lily's got college stuff." "Don't," I cut in. "Don't you dare make excuses. I've been sitting in this room for 6 days wondering what I did to deserve being cast off like old furniture. You couldn't even wait until after Christmas." Matt sighed. "We talked about this. Claire and I thought it would be a good change of pace, a place with professionals." "I didn't ask for professionals," I said. "I asked for my family." Another pause. "I'm getting older, Matt. I know that. I forget things. I move slow. But I'm still me, and I'm not done yet." His voice softened. "Dad, you're being dramatic. It's temporary." I let out a breath. "No, Matt. What's temporary is trust. Once it's gone, it doesn't come back so easy." He chuckled, like I'd just quoted a movie. "You know," he said, "Claire was right. You've always had a way of turning everything into some emotional story." That stung more than I expected. "Guess you didn't learn that from me," I said. And then, without warning, he slipped. Just a little. "We're just trying to make things easier, especially with the house stuff. It's complicated." I froze. "What house stuff?" "Look, I didn't mean, never mind, it's not important. You're selling the house, aren't you?" Silence. "Matt?" He didn't answer, just mumbled, "We'll talk later," and hung up. I sat there, the dial tone ringing in my ear like a siren. So that was it. They'd moved me out so they could move on. Selling the house, the home Marjorie and I built together. Every corner had a memory. Every scratch on the floor told a story, and they were going to erase it. Later that day, I was in the common room when an old friend, Harold, came by. He didn't say much, just handed me a small envelope and a pat on the shoulder. Inside was a photo from 20 years ago, a BBQ in our backyard. Matt was manning the grill, Lily in a kiddie pool, Marjorie laughing beside me. I stared at it for hours. That night, I couldn't sleep. So I wrote a letter, not to Matt, to Lily. I told her about her grandma, about how we built that house nail by nail, how we used to dream of her future before she was even born. I told her about the fund, how it started with birthday money, then bonuses, then little bits scraped together whenever we could. I told her it wasn't just money, it was a promise, and how that promise had been betrayed. I didn't send it, not yet, but writing it made something inside me settle. The next morning I asked Maria to help me arrange an appointment with Howard, in person this time. She didn't ask questions, just said she'd drive me herself. "Are you sure about this?" she asked. "I've never been more sure," I said. "The world may think old men are soft, but we're not. We're weathered. We bend without breaking, and when the time comes, we remember exactly who we are." I'd given Matt everything. Now it was time to take something back. Howard Graves hadn't changed much. His hair was thinner, glasses thicker, but he still greeted me with that same firm handshake and concerned eyes. "John Walker," he said, motioning me into his office. "If I didn't know better, I'd say you age backwards." I managed a smile. If only. Truth is, I've been holding off on this visit for years. Should have come sooner. He gestured to the chair across from his desk. "What's going on?" I told him everything. Not all at once. It came out slow, like syrup, thick with hesitation and shame. The silence at home, the fundraiser incident, the nursing home drop-off on Christmas, and then the final nail, Matt's accidental admission about selling the house. Howard didn't interrupt. He just listened. That's why I trusted him. He wasn't one to jump to conclusions or comfort for comfort's sake. When I finished, he sat back, folded his hands, and said, "You want to change your will?" I nodded. "I want them out of it. All of them." He didn't look surprised. "You sure about that?" I paused, staring at a painting on the wall behind him. A calm lake, sun rising over still water. "No," I said. "But I'm sure they left me out long before I did this." Howard took out a yellow legal pad and clicked his pen. "Let's start with what you want instead." I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out the latest statement for Lily's college fund. "I want this transferred, all of it, principal and interest, to a scholarship, for caretakers, nursing students, people like Maria." "Maria?" "She's the nurse at the facility," I said. "She sees people, not just residents, people, like my wife used to." Howard raised an eyebrow. "That's poetic. You're serious?" "I've never been more serious." We spent the next hour going through details. The house, which was still in my name, would not go to Matt. It would be repurposed. I didn't know exactly how yet, but I told Howard to put in a stipulation. If my will was contested in any way, everything, the house, the fund, my entire estate, would go to a local hospice charity. "And I mean it, Howard. I don't want even a nickel to end up in their hands if they try to fight this." "Understood," he said, scribbling a note. "Add a letter, too," I added, "to be read only if they ask why." He looked up. "What should it say?" I thought for a moment, then said, "Tell them this. I gave you everything, and when it was my turn, you gave me silence." Howard nodded. "That's enough." We notarized the documents, signed every page. I initialed every line. By the end, my hand was cramping, but I didn't complain. Every pen stroke felt like a reclamation of self. Walking out of his office, I felt lighter, not happy, not even at peace, but clear, like a fog had finally lifted. Maria was waiting by the car, thumbing through a paperback. When she saw me, she smiled. "All done?" "All done," I said. On the ride back to the facility, I watched the world go by. Strip malls, gas stations, kids on bikes. No one knew what I had just done, and maybe that was best. It wasn't for show. It wasn't even for revenge. It was for dignity. That night, I wrote one last note. This one wasn't for Howard, or Maria, or even Lily. It was for Marjorie. "My love," I wrote, "I kept your promise. Just not the way we thought. Our granddaughter, she lost her way. Or maybe she was never shown it to begin with. I failed there, I think. But your legacy, it'll still live. In hands that deserve it. In hearts that won't forget. I hope you understand." I folded the letter and placed it in my Bible, right between Psalms and Proverbs. She used to say those were her favorite, songs and wisdom. They still sound like her. The next morning, Matt called. I almost didn't answer, but I did. "Hey, Dad," he said, cautious. "Morning," I replied. "You doing okay?" I let the silence hang. "I'm fine," I said finally. "What do you need?" He cleared his throat. "I was wondering if we could talk, in person. Maybe this weekend?" "What about?" "Just, the future, the house, Lily's college, things we should have discussed earlier." "Too late, son." "I'm a little busy this weekend," I said. He hesitated. "Can I come by anyway?" I considered it, then said, "Sure, come by. Bring Claire, too." And Lily, because it was time they saw what a man with nothing left to lose really looked like. They came on New Year's Eve. Claire didn't want to come inside at first. I saw her sitting stiffly in the car, arms crossed, sunglasses on despite the gray skies. Matt eventually convinced her. Lily trailed behind, hoodie pulled over her head, earbuds still tucked in like this was some chore she wanted to get over with. Maria had helped me prepare. Not for a fight, just for the moment. The will was locked away in Howard's office. The letter was sealed. The documents, already in motion. Today wasn't about confrontation. It was about closure. Matt knocked on my door like a stranger, a soft, polite tap. I almost laughed. "Come in," I said, already sitting upright in my chair, coat on my lap. He stepped in first, glancing around as if checking for witnesses. Claire followed, silent. Lily kept to the doorway, her gaze glued to the floor. "Hey, Dad," Matt began. "Thanks for seeing us." "You made the drive," I said. "Might as well say something." He forced a chuckle, then gestured for Claire to speak. She cleared her throat. We wanted to talk about what's next. With the house. With you." I raised an eyebrow. "With me?" Claire folded her arms. "We found a nice assisted living place a bit further out, more comfortable, more private, better for your routine." "You mean out of town?" "It's not far." "How far?" I asked. Matt stepped in. 2 hours. I nodded slowly. "And the house?" "We've accepted an offer," Claire said quickly. "Nothing final yet, but it's a good deal. We'll split the proceeds with you, of course." "Split?" Claire smirked. "Well, it's community property, and since we've done most of the upkeep—" Matt interrupted. "What Claire means is, we've invested a lot into the house while you've been here, and we thought—" "Matt," he looked at me. "It's not yours to sell." He blinked. "What?" "The house, the deed. It's still in my name." Claire scoffed. "That's just a technicality." "No," I said calmly. "It's not." He shifted uncomfortably. "Dad, we thought—" "You didn't think," I interrupted. "You assumed. You made decisions without talking to me, moved me out on Christmas without warning, and now you want to talk about splitting something I built from scratch. With your mother." Lily finally looked up. Her eyes were wide. I saw her lips part like she wanted to say something, but then she looked at Claire, and the moment passed. "I thought this visit was to check on me," I said quietly. "But it's about money." Claire straightened. "Don't be dramatic." I stood, slow but steady. Maria was right behind me, arms crossed, quiet as ever. "Do you want to know what I did yesterday?" I asked. Matt looked wary. "What?" "I met with my lawyer. I rewrote my will. Removed both of you entirely. Every asset, including the house, goes elsewhere now." Claire's face went pale. "You can't—" "I already did. You can't just—" "If you contest it," I said, "everything goes to charity. Every last cent. There's a clause." Matt opened his mouth, but nothing came out. "I gave you my time," I said. "I gave you my trust, my home, my stories. And when I needed you the most, you walked me out of my own life and dropped me off like I was baggage." Claire muttered, "This is insane." "No," I said. "This is clarity." I turned to Lily. She flinched. "I saved every penny for your education. Not because you earned it, because your grandmother dreamed of it. But now, that dream belongs to someone else, someone who understands kindness. You forgot who I was, Lily. You forgot who we were." Her mouth trembled. I saw her hand twitch toward me. Some instinct, maybe. But Claire grabbed her wrist. "We're leaving," she said sharply. Matt lingered. "Dad, are you sure this is what you want?" I met his eyes. "I was never the one who walked away, Matt. You were." He dropped his gaze. "Goodbye," I said. Then I turned and sat back in my chair, heart thudding slow and deep. They left without another word. Maria knelt beside me and rested a hand on my arm. "You okay?" I nodded. "I've never been better." Outside, fireworks were starting early. Little pops in the distance. New Year's Eve. A new chapter. No regrets. That night, I sat in the window with a blanket around my shoulders and watched the sky light up. Every burst of color felt like a piece of pain being burned off. Not forgotten, but let go. I'd reached my limit, but I hadn't broken. The invitation wasn't meant for me. I found it sitting on the front desk at the nursing home, an envelope with the facility's address, but no name. Maria handed it to me with a frown. "Looks like someone forgot where you live." Inside was a thick, glossy card. "Lily Walker, Senior Scholarship Brunch. Join us in celebrating her accomplishments." The date, 3 days from now. The location, the country club on Maple Avenue. I stared at the words until they blurred. They'd invited the nursing home, not me, like I was an afterthought. Or maybe they assumed I wouldn't see it at all. Another quiet exclusion, this time dressed in gold lettering. But I wasn't going to be forgotten. Not this time. Maria didn't question me when I told her I wanted to go. She just nodded and said, "I'll drive. You need a suit?" "I've still got one," I said. "Same one I wore to Marjorie's funeral. Still fits." She helped me press it, tied my tie with practiced hands, slipped a folded document into my inside coat pocket, the certified copy of my will, sealed and notarized. "You sure you're ready?" she asked. I didn't answer. I just smiled. The country club looked just like I remembered it. Too clean, too quiet, too proud of itself. I hadn't been there since Matt's wedding. That day felt like a lifetime ago. Maria stayed in the car while I made my way up the path. Slow, deliberate steps. Each one a heartbeat. Each one full of every word I hadn't said. Every betrayal I hadn't confronted. Inside, the room buzzed with conversation. Tables of dressed-up parents, teenagers in dresses and suits, faculty in uncomfortable ties. A banner stretched across the back wall. "Congratulations, Lily Walker, our brightest future." There she was, standing near the podium in a soft blue dress, smiling for photos. Claire hovered nearby, drink in hand. Matt stood a few feet away, laughing with another father. None of them noticed me at first, until I stepped fully into the light. Claire was the first to see me. Her smile dropped. Her jaw clenched. Matt turned. His face went white. Lily, she froze, her expression unreadable. I didn't make a scene. I just walked up to the podium, picked up the microphone and tapped it twice. Conversations quieted. Forks paused mid-air. "Sorry to interrupt," I said. "I'll only be a moment." No one moved. "My name is John Walker. Some of you know me, most don't. I'm Lily's grandfather." A few polite nods from the crowd, uncertain smiles. "I came here today because I received this invitation by accident. I suppose I wasn't really meant to attend, but I'm here anyway, and I've got something to say." Matt stepped forward, whispering, "Dad, please don't do this." I held up a hand. He stopped. "I want to tell you all a little story," I said, my voice calm, "about promises, about family, and about what happens when you forget what those words mean." I didn't yell, I didn't accuse. I just told the truth. I told them about Christmas, about the nursing home drop-off, about being cut out of my own life. I told them about the college fund, the one Marjorie and I started before Lily was even born. How every birthday, every tax return, every spare dollar went into it because we believed in our granddaughter. And then I pulled out the envelope. "This," I said, "is the updated will, as of last week. My home, my assets, the college fund. All of it now belongs to a different kind of future. One built on compassion, on service, on remembering people when they're still alive." Gasps rippled through the room. I looked at Lily. "I wanted you to have it. We both did. But when someone forgets who they come from, when they let silence do the talking, they don't get to inherit the reward." Claire was red-faced. Matt's mouth was open, but no words came out. And Lily, she just stared, eyes wide, not angry, not crying, just stunned. I handed the microphone to the nearest teacher and stepped down. No applause, no objections, just silence. As I passed Matt, I leaned in and said softly, "This isn't revenge. It's remembering who I am." Then I walked out into the sunlight. Maria was still waiting in the car. "Well?" she asked. I got in slowly. "It's done." "Good," she said, starting the engine. "You hungry?" "Starving." We drove off, the country club fading in the rearview mirror. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. Some bridges aren't burned, they're simply left behind. Do you think the father made the right choice? Comment and don't forget to like and subscribe for more true life stories. The first thing I noticed when I woke the next morning was the quiet. Not the heavy kind, like in my son's house where silence meant tension. No, this was a peaceful kind. The kind that comes after you've finally said what needed saying. After you've turned a corner and let the weight fall off your shoulders. The phone didn't ring that day. Not from Matt, not from Claire, not from Lily. And for once, I was okay with that. Maria brought in my breakfast with a wink. "You're famous, Mr. Walker. Word's going around town." I raised an eyebrow. Good or bad? She grinned. "Both. Depends on who's talking." I smirked and stirred my coffee. Later that day, I took a walk outside. The air was brisk. That early January kind of cold that stings your cheeks and clears your head. The nursing home garden was bare, all browns and grays, but I liked it that way. Honest, nothing to hide. As I walked past the benches, I nodded at Harold, one of the other residents. He was bundled in 2 coats and holding a crossword puzzle. "Hey, Rebel," he chuckled. "Heard you dropped a bomb at the country club." I laughed. "Just told the truth." He nodded slowly. "Wish I had done that sooner with my own boys." We sat in silence for a while, just watching the wind blow through the dry hedges. "You ever regret it?" I asked quietly. Harold looked up. Which part? Cutting them off. He considered that for a long moment, then said, "Not the cutting, just the waiting. We spend so many years hoping people will change, but sometimes the most loving thing we can do is leave." That stayed with me all afternoon. Back in my room, I looked through my old things, a box of photos, Marjorie's shawl, Lily's early drawings, still folded and fading, but I couldn't bear to throw them out. They reminded me of when things felt pure, when love hadn't yet been complicated by money, distance, or growing pride. I found myself reaching for my pen again, and I began writing, not to my family, to myself. I wrote about how I had spent too long being quiet, too long convincing myself that patience was the same as love, that sacrifice meant silence, that loyalty was best shown by enduring mistreatment. But I'd learned better now. Sometimes love is loud. Sometimes it walks away. Sometimes it writes new wills and redraws family lines, not out of vengeance, but because truth deserves space to breathe. That evening, Maria brought in a slice of cake someone had baked. New Year's treat, she called it. I asked if she'd sit for a moment. She did. We talked about everything and nothing, about music, books, our favorite meals growing up. I told her about Marjorie's cherry pie and how I once set the oven on fire trying to make it without her. She laughed so hard she cried. "You know," she said softly, "you're one of the few people here who still dreams forward." "What do you mean?" "Most folks your age, they only look back. You're still building things, even if they're different kinds of things now." I nodded. I guess I've always needed something to build. That night, I slept deeply. No regrets. The next morning, there was an envelope slid under my door. No name, just a card inside. It was from Lily. "I didn't know, Grandpa. Not all of it. I just thought you were fine with everything. I didn't see it until it was too late." It ended with, "I'm sorry. I really am." No return address, no number. Just that. I read it 3 times, then folded it gently and placed it in the same Bible where Marjorie's letter lived, between Psalms and Proverbs, songs and wisdom. The silence continued after that. Matt didn't call. Claire never would. Lily stayed distant, but the world around me began to open in new ways. One morning, a young woman named Tasha came to visit the home. She was the first recipient of the scholarship I'd set up, a nursing student, just 22 years old, working 2 jobs to finish school. She cried when she met me. "You changed my life," she whispered. "I just wanted to say thank you in person." I told her the truth. "It wasn't really me," I said. "It was my wife. She had the idea long before I ever did." We sat and talked for over an hour. I told her about Marjorie, about the house, the birdhouses, the pancakes. She promised she'd carry that spirit forward, and in her eyes I saw something I hadn't seen in years: gratitude without expectation, respect without obligation. That night, I sat outside again, bundled in a thick coat, watching the stars emerge one by one. I thought about all the people who came and went through my life, all the conversations I should have had, the boundaries I should have drawn, the hugs I should have held longer. But I also thought about what still lay ahead. The silence after the storm wasn't empty. It was healing. And maybe, just maybe, it was the beginning of something new. The idea came to me on a quiet Wednesday morning as I was peeling an orange by the window. I watched a group of kids walking to school, backpacks swinging, hoods pulled over against the cold. One of them reminded me of Matt at that age. Scrawny legs, oversized coat, always lagging a step behind the others, deep in his own world. I used to worry he'd get swallowed up by the crowd. Turns out, I should have worried about the crowd getting swallowed by him. That's when it struck me. The house was still there, still mine, still standing. I hadn't been back since they dropped me at the nursing home. The thought of returning felt strange, even heavy, but it wasn't just a place anymore. It was a resource, a chance to start again. I told Maria about it that afternoon while we played cards. "I'm thinking of opening the house," I said. She looked up from her hand. "Opening it?" "Turning it into something useful, something Marjorie would have loved." She smiled. "Tell me more." I laid it out slowly. Not a shelter, not quite, but a kind of haven for caregivers, students like Tasha, maybe even older folks who just needed a place to regroup between life's punches, a place where stories mattered, where respect lived in the walls, no forms, no insurance, just care. Maria's smile grew wider. "You know, you might be the first man in here with a post-retirement plan." I laughed. Guess I never really liked retiring. The next week she helped me set things in motion. We went to the house together. It looked different, colder somehow. The flower beds were dead, the curtains gone. Matt and Claire had clearly started the process of moving things out, but hadn't finished. The lock still worked. The deed still bore my name. I stepped inside and took a long breath. It didn't smell like home anymore, but it could again. Room by room, we went through what was left. Old furniture, boxes of forgotten Christmas decorations, a few dusty tools I hadn't touched in years. I found the last birdhouse Lily had made with me. The paint chipped, the roof slanted, but still whole. I set it on the porch railing. Maria made a few calls. Tasha helped us connect with her school's community outreach office. By the end of the week, we had 3 volunteers, students looking for temporary housing while doing field work in the area. It wasn't much, but it was a start. I spent my days sorting, scrubbing, and fixing. My knees groaned. My back ached. But I hadn't felt this alive in years. Neighbors started popping by. A curious Mr. Delgado from next door, old Mrs. Fan with her lemon cookies. They'd heard whispers about the old man who kicked his family out and started a movement. I didn't correct them. Let them wonder. One afternoon, as I was fixing a window frame, Mrs. Fan sat beside me on the porch. "You turning this into a boarding house?" she asked. I shook my head. "No, just a place for people who give more than they get." She nodded slowly. "We need more places like that." Word spread. People started donating gently used furniture, bedding, a set of mismatched dining chairs. A retired teacher brought books. One of the volunteers painted a mural on the garage wall, a sunrise breaking over a quiet town, birds in flight across the sky. I added a sign out front, "Marjorie's house, a place to be remembered." I wept when I screwed it into the post, not because I was sad, because I could feel her again. In the light through the windows, in the smell of lemon oil and pine, in the laughter that slowly returned to the hallways. We weren't recreating the past. We were repurposing it. I didn't tell Matt. Didn't need to. He'd probably heard through the grapevine. Claire certainly would have seen the change of ownership record. But they stayed silent. Lily didn't come by. Not yet. But she hadn't disappeared either. She liked a post on the Marjorie's House community page. Just a heart emoji, no comment. That was enough for now. Tasha moved into the upstairs guest room. 2 other students, Nina and Elijah, took the attic and den. They helped with chores, made meals together, and started calling me Mr. W. I told them to knock it off, then laughed and let it stick. One evening after dinner we sat on the porch. Maria joined us, her hands wrapped around a mug of tea. The porch light buzzed softly overhead. The wind carried the scent of freshly cut wood from the shed, where I'd just finished building a new bench. "Feels like a home again," Maria said. I looked out at the yard, the old tree Matt and I had planted still standing tall. "No," I said quietly. "It feels like what a home should have been all along." She nodded. We didn't need to say more. I thought back to all the years I'd spent pouring my energy into one family, one future, one hope, and I realized something. I hadn't failed. I'd simply been pointing my love in the wrong direction. Now it had space to grow. Now it had purpose. And that purpose had a name: Marjorie. By spring, the house was alive again. Not just with people, with rhythm, with the kind of movement that says, "This place matters." Laughter from the kitchen, footsteps on the stairs, someone playing old records in the living room. The air smelled of coffee, fresh paint, and occasionally whatever Nina had burned for dinner. She wasn't much of a cook, but she tried, and that effort alone made her feel like kin. We didn't call it a boarding house. It wasn't. It was more like a shared pause, a place for people between burdens, a stopover for those who spent their lives caring for others, who needed someone, anyone, to care for them. Tasha stayed upstairs and studied constantly. She'd ask me to quiz her on anatomy flashcards, and I'd mess up the pronunciations on purpose just to make her laugh. Elijah took to fixing things. He'd repair the door hinges and tune the furnace like a pro. Said he never had a father around to teach him. I started showing him things: how to sand wood smooth, how to reset a tripped breaker, how to clean a paintbrush properly. One afternoon, he said, "Feels like home here." That one line nearly undid me. Maria came by every Sunday. She didn't have to. She still worked full-time, had a life of her own, but she showed up like clockwork, sometimes with muffins, sometimes with cleaning supplies, once with a battered upright piano she said was too loud for her apartment. It sat in the dining room now, and when she played, the house fell silent. Even the floors seemed to listen. Neighbors started pitching in without being asked. Mr. Delgado mowed the front lawn. Mrs. Fan brought soup and left little notes. Local kids painted colorful stones and left them in the flower beds with words like hope, peace, and be kind. I didn't feel old here. I felt useful, and that did something to me. Woke something up that I hadn't realized had gone dormant. One day, I was out front repainting the mailbox when I saw a familiar car drive by. It slowed as it passed. Lily sat in the passenger seat. She looked over. Our eyes met for only a second before the car kept moving. No wave, no smile, just that flicker of recognition. But even that felt like something. That night, I sat on the porch and watched the sun dip behind the tree Matt and I had planted decades ago. I thought about all the people I once believed were my real family, the blood ties, the last name sharers, the ones I'd raised and sacrificed for. And then I looked at the light spilling from the windows behind me, Tasha laughing as Elijah tripped over the new rug, Nina burning something again in the oven, Maria humming softly as she watered the porch plants. This was family too, chosen, earned, kept through kindness instead of obligation. People who stayed because they wanted to, not because they inherited the right. That distinction hit me like a warm wave. Later that week, I found a letter on the porch swing. No envelope, just folded paper with my name scrawled in Lily's handwriting. "Grandpa," it read, "I've been watching from a distance. I wasn't brave enough to stop before. I didn't know how to face you. I just want you to know, I think I understand now, about the fund, about why you did what you did. I still have questions, but I'm starting to see what love looks like, and I miss you." I sat with that letter for a long time, didn't cry, didn't rush to respond, just let it be. Sometimes words are enough. Sometimes the act of saying them, finally, carries more weight than any apology. The next morning I added a small mailbox outside the front gate, painted it blue. On the side I stenciled in white, letters, "Welcome." A few days later a second note arrived from Lily, no return address. Just a drawing of our old birdhouse and the words, "I remember." Inside the house, Life carried on, meals shared, projects started, a new bookshelf built, a backyard garden dug up by the volunteers and replanted with wildflowers and herbs. We didn't always agree. Sometimes we bickered. Once, someone forgot to clean the bathroom for 3 days and there was a household standoff. But we always came back to the table, always shared tea, always forgave. Because this family wasn't bound by DNA. It was bound by intention, by presence, by kindness. I realized then that maybe Marjorie's dream wasn't about Lily's degree or Matt's stability. Maybe what she really wanted was this, a place that felt like her, a house where no one went unnoticed, where love wasn't bartered or budgeted, where the old were honored and the young were taught not just how to succeed, but how to care. One evening, Maria brought over a stack of old newspaper clippings. One of them had our story. Retired builder reopens home as sanctuary for caregivers. There was a picture of me on the porch, arms crossed, smiling awkwardly. I looked at the photo and shook my head. "I look old," I said. "You are old," Maria laughed, "but you've never looked better." It was late April when she came. I'd just finished watering the garden, or rather supervising while Elijah and Nina bickered about tomato spacing, when I heard the gravel crunch beneath slow tires. I looked up and saw that car again, the same one that had driven by in silence weeks ago. This time, it stopped. The door opened and Lily stepped out, alone. No sunglasses, no phone in her hand, just her, standing there with uncertainty wrapped around her shoulders like a second skin. I didn't say anything, didn't move. She walked slowly up the path, looking at everything like it was a museum. The birdhouse, the flower beds, the new porch swing. She stopped at the steps, eyes on the sign. Marjorie's house, a place to be remembered. "You named it after her," she said softly. I nodded. Felt right. She took another step. "Can I sit?" I motioned to the swing beside me. She sat down carefully, like she wasn't sure she was allowed. We sat in silence for a few minutes, just the wind and the birds and the sound of distant laughter inside. Finally, she said, "I got your letter, the one you left for me. I read it a lot." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. I was angry at first, she admitted. Not because of the money. I think I just didn't understand. I thought we were still close. I didn't see what was happening. I didn't see you. She paused. I think Mom and Dad kept it that way on purpose. I looked at her then, really looked. The girl I used to read bedtime stories to. The one who called me Grandpa Bear and wore my tool belt around the backyard like a superhero. "I'm not angry anymore," she said, voice trembling. "Just sad that I missed so much, that I didn't ask sooner." My voice came out lower than I expected. "You were a child. Children believe what they're told." "I'm not a child now," she said, "and I want to know the truth about everything." So I told her. Not everything, but enough. About the fundraiser, the silence, the Christmas drop-off, the moment I realized my love had become an inconvenience. She didn't cry. She didn't flinch. She just held her breath like she didn't want to let any of it escape unexamined. When I finished, she said, "I don't blame you for changing the will. I would have done the same." "That's not why I did it," I replied. She looked at me, confused. "I didn't do it to punish you," I said. "I did it to honor your grandmother, and myself. Because dignity isn't something you give away, not even for family." She nodded slowly. "I don't expect anything from you," I said. "Not forgiveness, not a relationship, just understanding." She turned to me. "I want all three." That caught me off guard. "I want to visit. I want to help here, if you'll let me. I want to learn about her, Grandma, and about you, the real you." I looked out at the garden, now full of new sprouts. "You're welcome any time," I said. "But it's not a clean road. You don't get to skip the hard parts." "I know." We sat in silence again, but this time it wasn't heavy. It was shared. She eventually stood. "I should go. I just wanted to say it to your face." I nodded. "Thank you for coming." She hesitated at the bottom of the steps. "I'll write," she said. "And next time, I'll bring cookies." I smiled. "Don't burn them." She laughed, the sound soft and unfamiliar now, but still hers. As she got in her car and pulled away, Maria appeared on the porch with 2 mugs of tea. "Was that who I think it was?" she asked. I nodded, taking one of the mugs. "That was a visit, not a return." Maria sat beside me. "Is that enough for you?" "It has to be," I said. She didn't come back to reclaim anything. She came to understand. That's a good start. I sipped my tea, letting the warmth settle deep in my chest. "She still has her life ahead," I murmured. "I'm just a page in the middle of her story. But maybe, just maybe, I'll be a page she doesn't skip this time." Maria leaned back against the swing. "You already are." We rocked in quiet harmony, the wind brushing through the trees, the sound of someone playing piano inside, and the faint scent of soil and citrus in the air. I didn't need revenge. I didn't even need an apology. All I needed was the truth, spoken out loud, and a small crack in the wall that once shut me out. And now, finally, there was light coming through. Have you ever had to walk away from someone you love? Tell us your story in the comments. The day we unveiled the new sign, the sky opened wide with sunlight, the kind of golden light Marjorie used to call gentle proof, said it made everything feel like a memory before it was even over. Neighbors came first, bringing folding chairs and lemonade. Then Tasha and the other residents. Nina wore her best dress. Elijah brought a speaker and played an old jazz playlist. Maria handled everything with her usual quiet grace, guiding people to their seats, handing out programs we printed on my dusty old inkjet. We hadn't planned anything big, just a small dedication, a way to honor the transformation. The house, once worn and quiet, now pulsed with color and conversation. The porch railings were freshly painted, the yard full of blooming wildflowers. Laughter floated through the windows, the kind of joy you don't schedule, the kind you grow. I stood near the steps, straightening my tie, the same one I wore when Marjorie and I bought this house, the same one I wore the day we buried her. Only this time, it didn't feel like an ending. It felt like a beginning. I cleared my throat and stepped up to the porch, nodding as the crowd quieted. There weren't many people, maybe 20 or so, but each face carried meaning. Some I'd known for decades, others had only joined us recently, but they were all here, not out of duty, out of choice. "Thank you all for coming," I began, voice steady. "Today isn't about me. It's not even just about this house. It's about what it became, and who made it come alive again." I looked out at Tasha, at Elijah, at Maria. And it's about someone who believed in hope before the rest of us even saw the need for it. I reached into my pocket and held up a small locket, Marjorie's. Inside, a photo of Lily as a baby, curled into her arms. My wife Marjorie had a way of seeing things before they happened, not because she was psychic. Lord knows, if she was, she wouldn't have married a man who once superglued his hand to a cupboard door. The crowd chuckled, but because she believed in people, in what they could be, in who they could help, and this house, it was her sanctuary, her canvas, her chapel. I motioned to the sign now covered with a simple white sheet. We renamed this home in her honor, not out of sentiment, but out of purpose, so that every person who walks through these doors knows that kindness built these walls. I pulled the sheet down. The crowd applauded as the new sign gleamed in the sun. Marjorie's house, a place to be remembered. A simple plaque sat just below it. It read, "In honor of all caretakers, quiet helpers, and those who love without being asked." When I stepped down, Maria was waiting with a cup of tea. "You did good," she said. "No," I replied, glancing at the people hugging in the yard. "We did good." That evening, after the guests left and the house settled into its evening hum, I found myself alone on the porch again. A soft breeze moved through the trees. Someone inside was humming. Nina, probably. And the smell of cinnamon drifted out from the kitchen window. I reached for my notebook, opened to a fresh page, and began writing a letter I knew I'd never send. Dear Marjorie, today, your house became more than a home. Today, it became a refuge. We gave away the college fund, but we kept the promise. There are people here now who look at me like I'm more than an old man. They ask questions. They listen. They laugh. They call this place their own. And they treat it better than I ever imagined. Lily came back, not for long, just enough to show me there's still something alive in her. She's trying. You'd be proud of her. Matt never came, and that's okay. You always said that family was who stayed, not who showed up for the photo. Well, I've got a new family now, and I finally feel remembered. Love always, John. I closed the notebook and sat quietly as the stars blinked awake overhead. In the distance, I heard Tasha on the piano, playing something soft, almost familiar. A hymn, maybe. One Marjorie used to hum when she baked. I looked out at the street, empty now, except for a little girl on a scooter riding by, her father jogging behind her, laughing. And for the first time in a long, long while, I let myself feel proud. Not for what I built with my hands, but for what I rebuilt with my heart. Marjorie's house had lived once before, with love and warmth and all the noise of a young family trying their best. Now it lived again, with new hands, new names, new memories, and not a single one taken for granted.